Hello everyone, this is Nandini Ray and you are listening to the Maitri podcast between friends, Conversations with Maitri. My production team members Shilpa Sachdev and I are very excited as we have a lovely couple with us today and they are going to share their beautiful love story with us. I'm sure when this love story will unfold, some community members might feel uncomfortable. But this episode will be a great opportunity for all of us to identify our own biases. First, let me introduce this lovely couple. Meet Parag and Vaibhav. Vaibhav Jain is a global public health specialist who has worked for universities, think tanks, and the World Health Organization. He is currently consulting on a number of health and civic engagement projects and serves as senior advisor for the AAPI Victory Fund, a political action committee dedicated to increasing political power for Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in the United States. He is a former dental surgeon from New Delhi, India, who currently lives in New York with his husband Parag Mehta. Parag Mehta is a senior vice president at MasterCard, where he leads the company's efforts to advance sustainable and equitable economic growth around the world as executive director of the company's Center for Inclusive Growth. Parag has spent the past 21 years working to advance justice, inclusion, and human rights through political activism, public service, and now philanthropy. He played several leadership roles in President Obama's administration, including as liaison to the AAPI and LGBTQ communities and as chief of staff to the US Surgeon General. He is the board chair of New American Leaders, a national nonprofit organization that works to strengthen American democracy by electing first and second generation immigrants and refugees to public office. Parag is a second gen Indian American from Central Texas and a graduate of the University of Texas at Austin and the Maxwell School of Citizenship and Public Affairs at Syracuse University. Thank you so much, Parag and Vaibhav, for coming to our show.
Thank you, Nandini. Thanks for having us.
Listeners, I must add here that when Vaibhav and Parag got married in 2019, their wedding made headlines around the world. Not only was it a same sex wedding performed according to Dharmic traditions, but it also served as a model for how families and communities can evolve when they lead with unconditional love and compassion. A toast by Parag's dad had gone viral on social media and become an exemplar of parental acceptance. Now, the two are plaintiffs in a landmark court case before the Delhi High Court, which seeks to legalize same sex marriage for 1.4 billion people in the world's largest democracy. Today, we will hear how their activism is helping to inspire positive change around the world. I'm so happy that you are here today, Parag and Vaibhav. You know, okay, let's start our conversation. Parag, you are a second gen Indian American, and Vaibhav is a dental surgeon from India. So I'm very curious to know how did you meet and fall in love? Who proposed? I want to know everything.
Sure. It's a lot.
Well, we met because Vaibhav is more than a dental surgeon. He is persistent. And I think when you grow up in India, you learn that you can't just wait for things to happen to you. You have to go out and seek it. Right. And I give him a lot of credit. So in 2012, he was in Washington, D.C. As a graduate student studying for his master's degree. And I was working in the Obama administration. And we both happened to be at the same event, which was the annual Gay Pride Parade, which happens in June. And there were probably 500,000 people there that day, either watching the parade or participating. He was one of the watchers. I was one of the participants. And I was marching with a Desi group called Kush DC, which is a LGBT group for Desis who live in the DC area. And I happened to be marching in the front of the parade. And so they were playing Bollywood music and we were having a great time. And I kept looking in the audience for Desi folks because I wanted to go dance with other brown people. And when I got to DuPont Circle, which was like the center of this whole parade, I must have seen Vaibhav and danced with him. I have no memory of this, by the way, because I danced with a lot of people that day, but he remembers it very well.
Yeah, so for me, Nandini, it all started obviously in 2012, but I wanted to backtrack a little bit. So I moved to the US in 2011 for a master's program in public health, and you have to understand it was a big cultural shock for me, leaving behind home, and there's so much to change.
Yeah, I completely hear you, Vaibhav. I came from India when I was 26 years old, so I completely understand what you are going to say.
Yeah, so it was overwhelming, but I also had a secret with me, and my secret was I was gay, but I was deeply closeted. So I'd never visited a pride parade or any public LGBTQ event in India for the fear of being outed. So I was deeply closeted. But when I came to the US, I promised myself I'm going to be honest to myself and to everybody around me. So 2012 Pride Parade, when I saw Parag, I had actually decided that I'm going to go march with this group, the Kush DC group. And then I realized, yeah, I think that's too forward. I've never done this. So let's maybe be a watcher this time. Let's just be an audience member. So I decided to, go there. And this was a very long event, like, several hours. And it was very, very hot. But, when I saw Parag, there was something about him, he was very intriguing. Every time he would see somebody remotely brown looking, I remember he was wearing a very cute white t-shirt which said the word Desi on it. And he basically, danced with anybody brown looking. And, at one point of time, he danced with me. And it was for a few seconds. And I had my camera with me. So I was taking lots of pictures. So when I came back home, I was looking at my pictures. And I saw this picture of Parag. I'm like, who is this guy? He's so cute. And, he seemed like so much fun and energetic. So maybe, he's on the Kush DC's group on Facebook. So I was part of that group and I looked through, all the members and I didn't find them. And then I looked through a couple of, members' profiles and somebody had actually tagged Parag. I'm like, I think that's the guy. So
oh boy, you are persistent. You are really persistent.
I mean, it was Saturday night.
In some cultures, they call it stalkerish, but persistent is a nicer way of saying it.
It's the right way. And see, I got him. So, then also I basically just, went on his Facebook profile, looked at who he was, and then I Googled him and not realizing that I am being so stalkerish. I was like, what if he's some, psycho or something? So I actually looked him up on Google. And then when you look him up on Google, you'll actually learn the amount of advocacy that Parag has done, not just for LGBTQ people, but for Asian Americans all over the US. So it was just so heartwarming for me. I'm like, look at this guy. He is Indian American. He is Jain. And, he grew up in this country, but, he cares about his culture, his identity so much more than, the others that I've been surrounded with. So, I'd love to meet this guy. It's so intriguing. So I sent him a Facebook poke. And I was like, if possible, I'd like to just meet him and see where things go. Again, I had no agenda in mind. And again, I was very shy. I didn't know what to do. So Facebook had this very old feature called poke. So where you don't know somebody, you can just poke people.
Yeah,
you just listen to your heart. You just listen to your heart, Vaibhav. You just,
I did.
Whatever, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thank God you listen to your heart.
Yeah. So Parag, do you want to say what happened after?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised to get a poke because I didn't think anybody actually used that feature on Facebook. But I ignored it. And then the next morning, I think he poked me again and I ignored it a second time. And then by the time I got to work, he poked me a third time. And so I decided to send him a message saying, hey, who are you? Are you just going to keep poking me or do you have something to say? Use your words. And to his credit, because as you can tell, he is good with words. About an hour later, I got a beautiful message from him telling the story of how he'd come to that parade, how he had seen me and how he had looked me up and how he just wanted to meet me and basically get to know me. And I thought it was very sweet. And it was something about it was very endearing. And so we made a plan to meet the next night for dinner. And that was our first date. And we've been together for 9 years ever since.
And that first date was 6 hours. We just didn't want to go away. It was so much fun.
Wow, it's a beautiful, beautiful love story. And I love hearing love stories and I love interacting with happy couples. In our work, it's unfortunate that in our work we see so many people are abused by their partners, by their intimate partners who they trust, who they love, and it's frustrating. So when I see happy, healthy, respectful couples, and really they give me hope. And I myself happy, so I want people to. I want to see happy people. I don't know why people hurt their own. It's really frustrating. And I feel if intimate partners have love, mutual respect, open communication, and compassion in their relationships, why should we even care about their class, caste, religion, sexual orientation, and gender identity? If the couples are happy and safe with each other, then that's all it should matter. But unfortunately, the reality is something else. So I don't want to talk about that. Let's focus on love and happiness today. So how did you talk to your parents about your marriage, and what was their reaction?
Yeah, so for me, it was obviously a process because, as I mentioned to you, I was closeted and my parents had no idea. So that process started after I met Parag, and it was in 2013. I was doing a fellowship at the WHO in Geneva,
Mhm.
and my parents were visiting. And at that point of time, there were some friends and family who had found out because we were posting pictures together on social media. So, Parag actually, because he had come out to his parents like about 15, 20 years ago.
Mhm.
So he had gone through this entire process. So he was a guide, a source of light for me in this entire, moment, because I was so confused. I was so scared. And Parag's like, Vaibhav, your parents love you so much. This is one thing that you owe to them.
Mm.
Like, make sure that you tell them in your own words who you are and tell them about yourself versus them finding out from somebody else, because that would be very hurtful. People could misrepresent, people could say something which is not true. So take some time, take some strength, but definitely tell your parents on your own. So 2013 summer is when I decided to tell my parents, and they were visiting me, and they're such kind, loving parents. So I sat down with them. They were about to leave for Delhi from Switzerland, and that night I sat down. I just started to cry on the bed, and my parents are like, "What happened, Vaibhav? Beta, what's going on? Is something wrong?" I said, just I wanted to talk to you, both of you, and they thought that something serious, and they got really upset. They're like, "Are you okay? Is everything okay? Are you safe?" I said, "Yeah, I'm absolutely fine, but I wanted to tell you that I don't want to get married." And my parents are like, "That's nothing, that's all right. There's so many people who don't get married, and we won't force you. I know we've been asking you when you want to get married, so that's totally fine, we understand." But I said, there's more to it. And the more part is that I'm actually attracted to men, I'm not attracted to women. So that sent chills down their spines. They had absolutely no idea. And I had to explain what the word gay meant to them. Now you have to understand, these are my parents, grew up in India, but they have no frame of reference of the word gay, what the word gay means. So I had to explain it to them. But I also remember Parag telling me that time that, Vaibhav, be confident in what you're telling them and be upfront. Like, don't get scared or whatever, because if they feel that you're not sure of what you're saying, they would think that, oh, this is a reversible thing, there's something wrong with him. So with conviction, I told them, that I'm gay and I've known myself for so long. And my father immediately came, put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Beta, it's going to be okay. Don't worry." And then it started a period of conversation, it was very uncomfortable. My parents had some really uncomfortable questions because they had no idea. And during the conversation, my mom asked me, and she said, "Vaibhav, I think I failed as a parent." And I just started crying, and I'm like, "Why are you saying this? Are you saying this, Mama, because I'm gay? Because it's not your fault. I promise you it's not. This is who I am." They said, "No." She said, "No, beta, this is not why, I think I failed as a parent. I think so because it took you 26 years of your life to tell me such an important truth, such a big secret of your life. So I think I failed as a parent because I couldn't give you that comfort. I couldn't give you that space to be who you are, to be honest with me. So from now onwards, I'm going to do the parenting that I couldn't do for the last 26 years. And I'm going to be the parent. I'm going to do the worrying, and you do the relaxing. You take care of yourself. But there's just one small thing that I ask of you is don't tell anybody. We love you. We respect you. We are very happy for you, for who you are, but just keep it to yourself." And they left after that, and it was very difficult. For the next 6 months, my mother was almost catatonic. She would call on the phone every day, cry, be very, very sad. And that was the process. But ultimately, it took her 3 to 4 years. And we finally got engaged in 2016. And then, we told our parents, and they were very happy. And then 2017, we said that we want to get married, and they were very supportive.
Wow.
So what do you want to share?
I don't blame parents, because when they at one point they are parents, they love their children. I am a parent, I love my children, but at the same time I'm also a community member. So I don't know if I have enough strength and resilience to face community if I am going against the community norms. So sometimes I feel that we need to talk a lot. We need to normalize everything. If a lovely couple can be heterosexual, they can be homosexual too. So that kind of normalization, we need to we need to talk a lot. And I don't know, maybe we can start with our what we are doing, like in our podcast, in our in our parties. We can talk about these things so that people can start thinking that, oh, it's okay, it's normal, it's not something, it's not a sin to love from your own same sex, to have a same sex partner. So I don't know how and when we can do it, but we have to do. That's a beautiful story. I can see that your mom, at one hand, she loves you a lot. Other hand, she's kind of thinking that my son will face some community ostracism. Probably she wanted to, gu- to guard you from that ostracism or something like that. What that I'm understanding. Is that true?
That is absolutely true. So I think that's what she was most worried about. She knew that she had to protect me. Both my parents not so, but they were just worried. They're like, how are you going to face society? And, they were also worried that, Vaibhav, you will go back to the US, but, we also live in the society, and it's going to be very difficult for us to live in that environment. How will we face our friends? So, it's that, phrase we use in Hindi, we say, log kya kahenge?
Log kya kahenge, yeah.
Society kya kahegi, log kya kahenge, hamare dost kya kahenge. So that's something that she was most worried about. But she learned something very quickly, Nandini. She learned that logo ka kaam hai kehna. People will talk. People will say what they like to, but at the end of the day, if they love you, if they support you, and they accept you for who you are, they will come to you and they will always be with you. Yeah. And that's what happened. She slowly started to tell her siblings, my aunts and uncles. My father started to tell his siblings, and they were all supported. Now, there were some family members, one or two, who gave weird reactions, stupid comments. But my parents decided, they're like, those people are not worth it then. We love our child and we want to celebrate our child, and we want to tell our family how proud we are of our child. And if they think that they want to support us, that's great. But if they don't want to, that's on them. And that was a journey. And I absolutely agree. Like, they started just where most parents start. They started at a place of fear of fear of the unknown, and they were very scared. But as they moved forward in that journey, they understood how easy it became once they accepted the truth, and then they became comfortable talking to everybody about it.
Yeah, the more we talk, the more, then we can normalize these things, and more people will have strength to stand firmly with their children. And to talking about this, I remember, honestly, I didn't know anything about you. The day I first watched a video about Parag's dad, at that time I came to know about you. And the video was like a loving dad is delivering a compelling speech at his gay son's wedding. And Dr. Vijay Mehta's speech was so heart-touching that I wanted to share that video with everyone in my community, as I know that many parents and family members are not supportive to their children who don't follow socially constructed gender norms. And many teens and young adults are suffering, and they're facing hatred, abuse, and oppression because of who they are and who they love. And that's so sad. And I wanted to share that video again, that speech again with my listeners. And Shilpa, would you please play that video, the video clip?
I didn't know in advance what my dad was going to say. I didn't know how much he was going to share.
This is my first gay wedding, by the way. And for many of you, this might be your first gay wedding to attend. Back in 1997, I was one of the luckiest father around. My son was valedictorian, spelling bee champion, UT Plant 2, playing the great job as a Romeo, and he actually fooled me because he actually did a good job as a Romeo and Juliet. Everybody else has a girlfriend here and a girlfriend there and this and that. And I said, Parag is such a pure guy. Man, I'm so lucky. On 27th March at 4:25 p.m. on that Friday night, Parag had a very small speech. Dad and Mom, I'm gay. I have known it since I was 10 years old. I thought I was confused, but I'm beginning to realize that I am gay. I thought I will hide my being gay until you die, so you won't be embarrassed. I tried to commit suicide while I was in the high school, but I did not succeed. Thank God for that. But last week I was discussing in the class, and there was another Indian girl, and I blurted out, I am gay. So I knew the news will come to you sooner or later. Therefore, I'm telling you I'm gay. The whole thing was like 3-minute speech. From the best of the time, our life went to the worst of the time. And I was a very homophobic person. There is no question about it. So I thought there is no big deal. I'll fix him. I'll find the best treatment center in the country. I'll find the cure for it, and I'll handle it. Monday morning, I was the first person to enter the medical library, and I pulled out all the Cumulus Medicus. And then I suddenly realized in 30 minutes that American Psychological Association back in 1973 had declared that gay people is not a disease, it is not a defect, it is not to be cured, it is not contagious, and if you accept somebody is gay, your child is not likely to be more gay than otherwise. I asked a simple question. Do I love my son any less at 4:31 than I loved him at 4:24? And a long pause, and the answer was no, I still love him the same. So then I wrote a letter, and when I wrote a letter, this is what I did. I said, who will be the 50 people who have played the important role in Parag's life? Some of them were very conservative, and I knew that they will freak out when they heard it. So I kind of thought, okay, maybe 50% of the people would not talk to me. And my life would really be isolated. What to do? Again, a few minutes later, the answer came very simple. I said, Vijay, if there are 50% of the people who don't want to talk to you, maybe they don't need to be in your life. Why don't you stick with the other 50% who will be with you?
So, listeners, I hope that you could hear a loving father's speech and his blessing to his son. And I personally loved that speech, and I hope that you all of you love that speech too. So after hearing that speech, I'm just asking Parag and Vaibhav that do you want to say something to those parents who are struggling accepting their LGBTQ plus children?
Yeah, I think that what my dad's words make so clear is that at the end of the day, we have to prioritize our children, right? That's a parent's number one job. And in some ways, the reaction to his speech has been amazing because people recognize how extraordinary his words were, as you did, Nandini. But on the other hand, it's actually a very ordinary act of fatherhood, because essentially what he's saying is, I love my son and I choose my son over society and what society thinks. And that should not be as extraordinary as we made it out to be. But I will say this, we recognize that for both my parents and Vaibhav's parents, this has been a journey. It's been a journey of incredible courage and bravery. We applaud them for it. What our hope is, and the reason why we keep sharing our story and why we appreciate people like you telling this story, is exactly what you said at the beginning, which is we have to normalize this. It should no longer be a shocking or brave thing for a parent to stand up and say, I love my child, regardless of who they are or what they are. That should be the norm. And I think that my dad's words and the reaction to his words around the world are helping to make that the new normal.
And one thing that I would also add is that, if you hear the full speech, it's available on my YouTube channel. You would hear that, Parag's dad, my father-in-law now, was actually very vulnerable in the entire conversation. He actually shared how homophobic he was as a parent. And he did not know, he was indifferent and sometimes ignorant. He would say things that he didn't know. So, it's such an honest thing that he starts with, that, I was a homophobic father. And when my son came out, this is how I changed. So I think
and at some point he said that I went to library to read that how can I fix it? How can I cure him? And then I found out that it is not a disease and it is normal. And that part is so empowering, right?
Yes. So that is the thing I was just about to mention, that, it is very important for parents themselves to not just listen to what they, hear around them. It's all right if you don't know, and if you have mixed feelings about it, that's absolutely fine, but learn to educate. Learn, find resources around you. Even if you're in India, if you're anywhere in South Asia, if you're in the US, find resources, because there are now resources available. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, maybe not. But now internet has everything. Local libraries would have content. Go learn, go educate. And it's all right to not be correct the first time. It's all right if you are homophobic, but you know what? Change yourself after educating yourself. So I think that's definitely something that I learned from that. And, you have to remember that Parag was so worried throughout that speech, because if you look at his expressions, you would see that he was very uncomfortable.
I had no idea what he was going to say.
No, I noticed
that. He shared a lot of information, a lot of personal information that I didn't expect. Suicide. But it's interesting that the day after the wedding, when we were saying goodbye to all of our guests, one of my very good friends from college came up to me and she said, "How are you doing?" And I said, "I'm good." She said, "No, I'm asking because when your dad was giving the toast last night, I wasn't watching him, I was watching you." And she said, "I could tell from the expression on your face how uncomfortable it was and how difficult it was to hear him share all that." She said, "But Parag, I want you to know something." She said, "That speech was not for you and Vaibhav. Even though it was a toast at your wedding, it wasn't for you. Your dad was speaking to his friends and his family members and his generation. And what he was doing was he was speaking in their language, in the way that they talk, and he was giving them permission to change their minds. He was giving them the opportunity to grow up." And she said, "That is one of the best gifts your father could have given, not just the two of you, but all of us who were there in that room." And that was the moment where I really felt so thankful and proud of my dad for what he actually did, because I realized this is how change happens.
And both of us had heard the stories so many times. So many of our family members knew the stories too. But, some friends reached out to me later saying, "Hey, we really loved your father-in-law's speech. Do you mind sharing it?" So I asked my father-in-law, saying, "Dad, is it okay if I just cut the speech and, post it?" He said, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." So the videographer sent me the whole wedding video. I clipped it and I'm like, I'm just posting it on my YouTube channel. And then I just shared it with a few friends. Next thing you know, in a matter of months, it's getting hundreds upon thousands of views. And we were shocked. We're like, what is going on? This is a story that we know. Why are people suddenly finding it extraordinary? So that's when we realize the magnitude and the power of those words that he said, as a vulnerable, as an honest parent.
That's a powerful message. And and another thing I wanted to share with you, and Vaibhav, when you were saying that, I was watching Parag's face when the dad was giving speech, and no matter what, this is a big speech, big thing, but no matter what, whenever parents are saying something in a public platform, kids are always tense what they are going to say. That is a secret. That is a very true thing. And I'm a parent. I have teenager children, so I know that whenever I'm saying something, they're looking at me. And think about it, it's a wedding day, and dad is giving a speech. So I totally can understand Parag's.
Thank you, Nandini. I appreciate it.
And so what? You just told me that it's a normal thing. Yeah, we know that it's why people are. It's a magnitude why they're watching that video. Because for many people, it's not very normal thing. It's a very, very problematic. It's very, very shaded gray area. And you know what? Some people in our community, they say that homosexuality is a foreign concept. It is not even in our culture. So when I hear that, so I don't know how to react, but I would like to know what will be your response to it.
Yeah, we've heard this a lot. Actually, what I would say is homophobia is a foreign concept. homosexuality has been a part of our culture since the beginning. You go back and you look at the carvings on some of our ancient temples in South India, you will see same-sex love portrayed. It was a normal and common and celebrated part of our society for thousands of years until outsiders came in and conquered India. So whether it was the Mughal Empire or then the British brought their laws in, that Victorian sense of Puritanism, that Victorian sense of propriety and sort of opposition to anything outside of their norm, that is what we are stuck with today. So among the many terrible legacies that the British have left us with were laws that decriminalized or that criminalized homosexuality, and this sort of idea that the only kind of normal love is heterosexual love. So that is not part of our culture. That is not who we are. And in fact, what we are fighting for today in India and around the world is for a return to our roots of what our culture always had been and what we always celebrated, which is love. Love in all of its many wonderful forms.
And if you go into Indian mythology, you would see that there are so many characters. We talk about Lord Shiva being the Ardhanarishvara. In Jainism, which is Parag and I are followers of, we actually talk about the soul not just being a masculine and feminine. We also talk about a neuter gender. We talk about that a man and a woman are not just made of one soul; they're made of man and woman together. So that in itself tells you so much about the knowledge of our ancestors. And I would urge you and your listeners to check out somebody named Devdutt Patnaik. Now, Devdutt Patnaik is a very renowned writer in India. And he writes openly about LGBTQ issues, but he also relates them to the stories in Indian mythology. How LGBTQ, issues and LGBTQ stories have been in Indian mythology forever. And he gives such beautiful explanations. So I would urge your listeners to read some of the writings of Devdutt Patnaik.
Hopefully people are listening, and at least some people will, go back to your suggestion and read that. And they should actually. People, if they don't educate themselves, they won't be able to come out of that dark, I don't know how to explain it. It's very sensitive topic. So, but I just want people to read, to understand, to talk to people, and as you said, Vaibhav, that yes, it is okay to be homophobic, and but if you understand your bias, and if you want to come out of it, if you talk to people, if you talk to someone who is from that community, and if you read, and then probably you will understand that, so many things I know that is wrong, and I need to come out of it. And I hope people will do that. So do you want to give any message to those who haven't come out yet? And as many people, they feel that they're feeling pain, they're feeling oppression, but they are scared to come out. So do you have any message for them?
Sure. So my message is a couple of folds. Number one, I would say always come out when you're safe, when you're ready, and come out on your own terms. Don't come out because your friends are telling you, your family wants to know. No. When you feel absolutely comfortable, when you feel that, yes, you're ready, is when you should come out. Also come out and, when you're physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially safe. My parents were accepting, they were great, it worked out. It could have gone south, Nandini, easily. My parents could have been very, very upset. My father was funding my, education that time. He could have said, no, I'm not going to fund your education. Come back to India with me. It could have been very dramatic for me. He could have forced me to get married. And that's not something to joke about. It happens in India all the time. I can tell you, I have LGBTQ friends that I've known for the longest time. They were forced into marriages, straight marriages, gay men getting married to women, gay women getting married to men. And it's all true. So come out when you're ready, when you're absolutely safe. And then know this, when you do come out, and if you don't get the kind of acceptance that you get from, that you expect from your parents, know this, that there's a community around who can support you. I found that community, when I found LGBTQ groups around. I found that community in the person I love, my husband, Parag. So there is millions of people outside, of your home who love you, who accept you, and who know that you're amazing and you're perfect the way you are.
I would just add that for anybody who's listening, who is struggling with coming out or struggling with their sexual orientation, remember that you're perfect and that nothing that anyone says or thinks can change who you are and the perfection that you are. Believe in yourself. Believe that you are deserving of happiness. Believe that you deserve love, and don't settle for anything less than that, because this is your life. And at the end of the day, you're accountable to yourself. So I'd say live your best life and know that we love you, and that you belong to our community.
Wow, what a beautiful message, that everyone should have love, safety, and dignity in their life. And, everyone should uh, have happiness in life. And I don't know why many people they have a problem with someone's dignity and love. But,
Usually, Nandini, it's because the person who is bigoted is reacting to something in their own life. I find that people who have hate and people who have bigotry, they're reacting to their own deficiencies, their own inadequacies, and their own insecurities. It was really interesting when we were planning our wedding. We searched really hard to find a priest to officiate it, because there were not many Jain priests in America to begin with, but even the few who were there refused to do a same-sex wedding. We were lucky that we finally found a terrific officiant who performs Jain weddings and was happy to do a same-sex wedding. But before he officiated, we actually invited a leader from the Chinmaya Mission, which is a Hindu organization, a leader from the local temple in Austin, Texas. And the Swamiji, who's a monk, when I asked him, would you be comfortable saying a few words at our wedding? He said, absolutely. I said, how is that though? Because so many people in the Chinmaya Mission, in the Hindu religion, are opposed to this. And he said a really beautiful thing. He said, Parag, it's because I, as a monk, understand that gender is not about genitals, it's about the energy. And he said, and the most important thing you have to understand about Hinduism is that Hinduism instructs each of us to live a life in pursuit of happiness. Now think about that. Thousands of years before people sat down and wrote a Declaration of Independence in America saying we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thousands of years before that, halfway around the world, the people of India had figured out that the pursuit of happiness is the ultimate goal of our life. And so that monk came to our wedding and spoke at our wedding ceremony and said exactly, very lovingly, and said that these two boys are doing exactly what their faith demands of all of us. They're pursuing their happiness, and they found it in each other. That's the moral of the story.
And it is, and sometimes you don't discuss this, Nandini, but, not having that love, being devoid of that love can give you so much of mental trauma. It can give you so much of anxiety, depression. People actually become suicidal. So those are things that people often don't talk about. LGBTQ youth, in the US, back home in India, all over South Asia, all over the world for that matter, suffer from some of the highest rates of suicide, mental health issues, depression, anxiety. And all of that can be sorted if they were just given some acceptance, some love, and they were just, approached with some, they were actually given the dignity that they deserve.
Of course, you are so right, Vaibhav. You are so right, and I'm very hopeful that one day that day will come. I'm very hopeful, and I know you are also hopeful about that, because people who love others, who are full of love, positive energy, they can think like that. So I know.
It is that hope. Yeah, it is that hope because of which we filed the case in the Delhi High Court as well, Nandini, because we believe in that day. We know that day is far, but not very far, and which is why we have hope in our people, in our judiciary, that one day that day is going to come and everybody is going to feel equal.
So time is running out. I hope we could, continue this discussion for another hour, but time is running out, and I'm hopeful that I will invite you again for another episode, and we can share some happiness with other people, with our listeners. So thank you so much, Parag and Vaibhav, for coming to our show and sharing your life stories with us, sharing your vulnerabilities, and sharing positive vibes of hope, love, light, and acceptance. I'm sure your story will compel many people to reflect on their own biases, and it will give hope and strength to many who are in pain. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Nandini. Thanks for having us. And, it's also important that, folks like yourself, podcasters like yourself, storytellers like yourself are bringing same-sex couples, because I think you're also doing important work, very important work. We need storytellers and podcasters like yourself bringing our stories to life, because that's when people around you, people in your community, our community, and the larger community will learn about us. So thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you, Nandini.
It's my pleasure. Parag, you want to add anything?
No, just saying thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. So thank you, listeners, for listening our show. And this is your host, Nandini Ray, signing off today. But I will be back soon with another interesting episode. In the meantime, please catch up with our previous episodes that you may have missed. Find all the episodes of our podcast, Maitri Between Friends, on SoundCloud and other podcast apps. Please like and share if you haven't already. Bye for now. Stay safe and stay happy. Thank you. This project was made possible by funding provided by Santa Clara County Office of Gender-Based Violence Prevention.
This show is for informational purposes only and is not to be construed as legal advice. Always consult an attorney for legal advice. Views expressed by guests of the radio show are individual opinions and not endorsed by Maitri.
Maitri is a free, confidential, non-profit organization based in the San Francisco Bay Area that helps families and individuals facing domestic violence. Don't suffer in silence. Call Maitri Helpline 1-888-8-MAITRI, MAITRI. Visit our website maitri.org.